Sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to call the meeting to order. So it's time to get to work. So, we call, you got the recorder starting over there? Perfect. So 6:34, we'll call to order the meeting of the Village of Campton Hills Zoning Commission on June 26, 2024. But I'll just call the roll, and I can just say, Mr. Gabarsky.
Here.
And Mr. Kopek.
Present.
Mr. Frederick is here, and then Ms. Turney is absent, and Mr. Teat is absent. We also do have Administrator Rooney and also Chairman or President Barb Monique. All right. And Jerry Johnson from Liaison as well is here. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Zoning Commission for May 22nd, 2024?
So moved. Second.
Mr. McGarski and Mr. Kopek, second. Any comments, corrections, changes, additions, subtractions?
No.
No. Okay. Can I have a motion to, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. The minutes have been approved. Public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to make a public comment this evening? Having heard or seen no interest at this time, we'll move on to item number 5, review and discuss the draft articles introduced at previous meetings of the Zoning Commission. This would be Article 5, permitted and special uses, and the Table 5.1, permitted uses. So, there are several comments on the, I believe on the notes of the staff notes. Most of them having to do would be with definitions, current definitions and suggested definitions. Is what I saw were the biggest things, short-term rentals and private club or lodge was one of them. And let's see, and then it's onto the map. So if we did go down and just continue down to, I'd just try to give you like, yes,
Excuse me, Ralph.
yes, please.
He's given us some options there as far as under, the definitions for, under Article 5. Are we looking at making a decision on which one some of those to use, or?
Yes, what I would like to do first is to actually go to the article itself first, Article 5. And I
Okay.
believe those definitions would be in the table 5.1.
Okay.
And so if we just go through the article first, then we'll go into the table, and then they are outlined in the table and highlighted in red. So I think we can just, that way we won't skip any or miss any, all right?
Sure.
Okay, Article 5, 5.1. They, 5.1A, I've got a couple of comments on number 4 and number 5, which I believe later on we'll find the T temporary base has been removed, and I believe that's a comment later on in the table.
Great.
So I would say strike item 5, since it's no longer going to be in the table. Item 4 says NA, indicates a not permitted. If you did look at the table, it's just way too cluttered.
Yeah.
It is really difficult to read.
And in the table, he refers to an X as being,
Yes, yeah,
So-
right. So,
the X would be appropriate, I think.
what I would suggest, if you could look at the table for a moment, if you went to table 5.1, which is page 23 in your folder or group, you'll see it's just like NA, 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 and it just kind of blends together with all the permitted and special
Yeah.
use things. It just becomes very, very difficult to see. If we went to page 20, or,
Ralph, can I just make a comment for
Yeah.
a sec? The title of table 5.1 is permitted and special uses in all zoning districts. So it doesn't make sense to me that we would list non-permitted items. So showing them as NA, to to me, it makes no sense to have them under the permitted zoning district.
agreed.
And I would recommend that we remove the ones that are not permitted.
So,
Or change the title to permitted and not permitted, because it says permitted.
yes. I can see, my suggestion would be, if you looked at the bottom of the page, on the paper it says 16, they've got dash, like under performing arts, under arts entertainment, there's performing arts. There's dash lines there. And then just the two permitted sections, or what the two permitted zoning areas as C1 and C2, says, yeah, it's permitted in C1 and C2.
Yep.
So I like that, it's a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot easier to see.
Yep.
And so I would suggest, let's just replace all the NAs with a dash. You know,
Yeah,
so at least,
it's
Yeah.
less confusing.
yes.
Yeah.
And then at least it knows too, if it's blank, then was there something in absence? Or was it,
Yep.
intentionally left blank? So by putting the dash in there,
Dash.
I think the dash signifies that we know that's not a permitted use.
But I would add then in the notes, on the bottom of page 17, since the title of the document is, I'm gonna call it permitted in all zoning districts, that we just identify in note 2 that not permitted are shown with the dash line or whatever verbiage we wanna use.
Right. Well, I think
That's
it
gotta
currently-
be in the notes.
It currently has an X in the column, indicates the use is not allowed. I would just replace the X with a
With the
dash.
dash, right.
And then that would just say, an X indicates the use is not allowed. And I think it'll actually clear up this table a lot easier to use.
Yeah, I would also change the title, drop the all.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I say permitted and special uses in zoning districts. Or-
That's it,
or-
yeah, simple.
So strike all in the table 5.1 title, and then basically just below the title, just, get rid of the T, because there is no temporary, and then replace an X in the column indicates not used allowed with a dash, and then appropriately affixed to the table, all right?
Yeah, I think somewhere in the, I don't know if it's this document or where it was, I remember seeing temporary uses being allocated on as necessary basis, I think. But since there's no reference in the table for the T, I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. I
table.
think it was a mention in it, I can't put my finger on it right now, but I
Yeah.
believe it said should be part of the municipal code.
Code,
Yeah,
exactly.
so it's gonna be actually
Yes.
removed and put in, because
Yes.
a temporary use would be part of the municipal code.
Right.
So, I believe that was the
So that
staff
would clean
comment.
this up quite a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so, going back to the beginning of, which would be page 14, permitted special uses, that would clean up 5.14, 5.1A4, which would be a dash, indicates the use is not permitted, and then item 5.1A5 would be removed, since there are no temporary indications there, all right?
What was the first one, Ralph?
5.1A4, it just says NA, indicates the use is not permitted, we're just gonna replace that with a
Yep.
dash, as we discussed. But that's the
Okay.
text versus the table format,
Yep.
so we got
Okay.
text and table, all right?
Just for guidance for Mr. Brown, when he returns, is for any of the uses that are not permitted at all in any of the zoning districts, do you want him to keep it in the table just with the dashes? Because there are some uses that are called out here, cannabis sales, gaming parlors, things like that. A lot of codes do include a dash or just blanks in those boxes to specifically call it out in the chart. I think that's probably why Mr. Brown put that here.
Yeah.
It's certainly up to whatever the village's desire is. Some also have a section of prohibited uses and then just list them by district. If I recall correctly, I think that's why Mr. Brown was leaving them in here. But, he can certainly take a look at that when he gets back.
Are you saying to actually separate the tables?
No,
Permitted and not permitted?
Well,
No.
you could do it a couple of ways. I mean, for instance, you look at the top of this chart, one of the first ones that has NA all the way across the board is short-term rental. The zoning ordinance already says that short-term rentals are not allowed. That's in a separate section of the code. Cannabis dispensing organizations is already in the zoning ordinance. he's also taking the next steps to call it out here. I don't think it's a bad idea to do
Yeah.
that. I think it makes it,
I agree.
you know, most people, when they're looking for whether or not their use can happen in the village, they're gonna go right to the table if they know what
It's
they're
easy
looking
to
for.
see, it's
So
concise.
there's nothing wrong with having it in both sections. If you think the table gets a little bit too lengthy, you could just have a separate written section that has prohibited uses.
No,
Either
I'm
is
fine
fine.
with this, but I think there needs to be a disclaimer on the
Mhm.
table saying that this is not all inclusive.
Sure, and I mean, and
I mean, it may be obvious, but somebody could point out, say, well, it's not called out in your table that I can't
Right.
do X and X.
right,
So,
and it's generally accepted that if the use is not on anywhere in the code, or it's not prohibited, or it's
Or
not
not permitted.
permitted, excuse me. Yeah, so, but I agree with you.
Okay, very good. Moving on, just please chime in if you see something, but I'm still on page 14 and just moving down through 5.2, principal standards. I don't see, there's a little bit of red under 5.2B. I think that was just updating what we did last time, and just the bed and breakfast, just admitting, or amending it, is what I was trying to say. Continuing on to the next page, I don't see any comments, which was page 7, at the bottom of that page on 5. Next page was under energy systems, H, which is page 8. Looks like a lot of strike, redlined, has been pulled out. And the only comment I would have then would be that we just have to renumber this. So it says F, which would now basically be A. So wind turbines must comply with the following design. So we just under, so that would be, for Jim's purposes, H2F should become H2A. Wind turbines must comply with the following design standards.
So, Bob, so why isn't it titled wind turbines instead of wind energy system? And then only lists wind turbines? I mean, it makes it appear that it's something other than a wind turbine, or that there's other types of wind energy in here, and I'm not seeing that,
Okay.
especially with the strike-throughs.
Yeah, so we could just retitle that to wind turbines.
Yeah.
Wind turbine systems.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that would be to H2, the title of
Yeah.
H2, instead of wind energy system, go to wind turbine systems.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, 'cause I mean, in the old B, it starts right there, that all wind turbines.
Right. Yeah.
I think the only other change I see is that in what is currently M at the end, references wind turbines and, where is it? Wind energy systems, so Jim may have to do some editing there to
Okay.
remove wind energy system.
Right, purpose of maintaining or operating the wind energy system, so that would be item M under that, so as well, just to edit that. Okay, very good, so let's just get that crossed off of there. All right, gas stations, nothing there, private club, okay, was auto body and auto repair, which is under L, Lima, and, looks like we think we had this discussion last time. I think this is what he put in, thoughts, what we wanted. Item 3,
Ralph, can you just go back to gas stations again?
yeah, sure.
I thought we had discussed at the last meeting that there would not be any repair at the gas station. Looking at gas stations as, you know, providing fuel and then, you know, the convenience store aspect.
Right.
But this is showing minor motor vehicle repair is allowed, and I thought we restricted that to the auto repair section, auto body and auto repair. I thought we removed that from the gas station aspect.
To be honest, I don't remember.
No, I
don't
don't
remember.
believe we discussed
I-
removing that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it didn't happen, I just don't remember
Yeah.
if that was,
So, I mean, define a minor motor vehicle repair.
yeah,
And to me, repair goes with the auto repair shop, and the gas station is for, I don't see repairs being done at gas stations anymore, but I don't think we should have the minor motor vehicle repair under gas station. I think that that's covered under auto repair.
Okay, so let me just look at auto body and auto repair real quick here, which is item L again, and I'll come back to that, just to see all repair operations performed and fully enclosed, auto body and auto repair establishment, about a residential, screened fence, partially, yeah, we just didn't want a bunch of discarded vehicles and stuff sitting there. Okay, staff comment, village, okay, all right, that was more, okay. So, yeah, then the question really is, do we want any vehicle repair allowed at a gas station? So, that's the
I'm
question.
saying typically not, because the vehicle repair in a lot of cases involves, I'd say a minor one would be an oil change. Well, then you've got the storage of the oil, disposal of the oil, potential environmental risks. And nowadays I see gas stations as, gas and convenience items. And I just don't think that we should allow that in that part. It's certainly allowed under auto body repair.
Yeah. I mean, I know gas stations themselves have to deal with hazardous, because they have to deal with spills and all that kind of stuff, so that's usually taken into account, but I understand your
Well,
point.
just for fuel, oil's different.
But people could, well, oil comes out of cars and stuff, so it's, it has to be collected, and, there's have to be a collection and a drain, it's like the
Yeah.
one that, up here,
But-
that just got
but
put in.
we do have a specific section, though, for vehicle repair.
We do. I'm just trying to think, I don't really have a problem, I mean, I see where you're coming from, and in the sense that, and I would agree, that the most gas stations you go to are not doing repair.
If there's a change to be made, that you don't have a gas station that does repairs now in the village, so, I mean, that doesn't mean that, if one came in the future, that they, if a change was made now to remove any repairs from a gas station facility, that they couldn't just
That's a special use.
ask for a special use.
Yeah.
And any gas station would likely be done under a PUD anyway, so
Okay.
that would be part of it.
But you could also always apply as both a gas station and an auto repair,
Right,
so,
or a gas station with minor repair.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at gas stations number 3. If people want to strike that entire one, I'm just going to read it over again. All repair work must be conducted, storage of all merchandise, auto parts and supplies, within enclosed structure, any vehicle awaiting repair must be stored. I think strike the whole section, number 3 then, all right?
yeah.
All, one vehicle wash bay is allowed, one volume of audio component, okay. So let's strike, gas stations, I3, and then renumber the following to, 4 and 5 to 3 and 4. All right? All right, good
Okay.
call, all right. All right, Joe, thank you. All right, after gas stations, we've got the vehicle auto body repair, which is L. Staff comment on number 4 says paragraph 4 seems to be a duplicate, what is found under section 5.1.2, covering nuisances. So no motor vehicles may be stored and no repair work may be conducted in the public right of way. So it sounds like I would agree, if it's already in the code, then we're just repeating it. I would strike 4. Yeah.
Fine, yeah.
Yep. All right, so we'll strike 4. So that would be, for the recording, L4, strike. No renumbering required. All right, which we did short-term rentals, that's straightforward. M, or Mike, are prohibited in all zoning districts, all right? Short-term rentals.
The definition for short-term rentals is for
Yeah.
residence use. It's a short-term rental on a storefront is not prohibited, correct?
That's a good, it doesn't really define that, so it's a good point.
Because I think this short-term rentals in his definitions, he was calling out,
Yeah, I'd have to go to the definition page of that. There's only like 25 pages of 50? 46, I mean, 51 of the total package, okay. Yeah, that's all right, that's good. Okay, yeah, it's, I think it's 50 and 51, so the bottom of 50 and the top of 51. So they have a current short-term rental in black, and then the red is the proposed. So it says currently now a short-term rental is a residential building, so that should answer the question there.
Yeah.
And then the new definition is a dwelling unit.
Dwelling unit,
Yeah, so it does specifically say that. So a dwelling unit, portion of a dwelling unit or accessory dwelling unit that is rented or occupied as a rental for overnight accommodations for a period of less than 30 days and does not meet the conditions and requirements of a bed and breakfast found in this ordinance. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so, good question. So I think that I would leave that in as proposed, because then it's defined as being residential. Okay? All right. Back up to the bottom of page 11 on the text, or 19 in your overall. We go down to the next page, which has, let's see, the very bottom of wireless telecommunications, N5, specific standards. Looks like that has been, first couple sentences have been blocked out. It just said it's not, got rid of the special, it was the whole thing about stealth design.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we got rid of that terminology. I think that was very confusing.
Well, except that it shows up in 5A.
Yeah,
5A.
yeah. To qualify as a stealth design, yeah. And it's also in the, yeah.
It's the last
It's-
sentence.
The last sentence there is
Five.
of 5, just which is basically the introduction, so.
Yeah.
So I think we decided that stealth design was going to be taken out. That would be a question again for Mr. Brown. My understanding was that stealth design, we just removed that. I could be wrong, but I
No, no,
believe that's
that's
what.
what we said,
I believe
yeah.
that's what we did. So under 5, section 5, specific standards, the last sentence, stealth design is in there. Probably would remove that, and then 5A to qualify as stealth design. And why you'd even have that whole thing.
I think the reason for removing that, the text that Mr. Brown removed is because currently stealth design is a permitted use, and I think you wanted to make all of the antenna special uses.
That's
Not,
correct.
not just stealth design. Let me back up. Currently, if you have a stealth design, it's a permitted use.
Okay.
And I think the discussion was, well, we'd like to make them all special uses in the zoning districts that they're allowed. So you remove that language regarding stealth design being permitted uses, but there's still some
Yeah,
work that needs to be
references
done
to it, yeah.
regarding stealth design.
So, yeah, the intention is that all should be a special use, then that's good. I believe it does reference that in the table as well, so,
It's in 5D also.
okay, thank you.
And the idea is that you would, if you did say yes to a special use in a certain area, you may still want to, for the benefit of the neighbors and the aesthetics of the village, use some of that.
Stealth divine, yes, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
That's why it's still there.
Okay, so I see it's 3 times in 5A, 5D, stealth design will have to be reworded. And this is just for Jim's, under wireless telecommunication facilities, N or November 5, 5A and 5D. Okay. Moving on, unless you have something else on that?
I know, I'm just, having trouble grasping this, why they're calling it stealth design and why it's not defined someplace to what that terminology means. I know what the intent is, and that was to cover the 5G installations of lamp post or water, low water towers or tree-based or whatever systems that are going to be lowered to the ground as opposed to
No, but
concentrate on towers.
It also could be across the country, they have them kind of look like
I know palm,
Yeah,
palm
make-
trees or
make it
whatever, but
aesthetic.
those are still, 3 and 4G systems where they're still basically camouflaging a tower.
Yes, sir.
Here, we're talking about systems which are no more than 30, 40 feet off the ground,
But they could be any and all.
or, 20 feet off the ground, right?
And
So,
sometimes they get placed in a bell tower,
yeah,
and that's stealth.
I think the beginning of the definition's there in 5A, it just needs to be called out a little bit better, because the way it's included there, it assumes that stealth design has already been discussed in the section, but you're removing it, so I think Jim needs to rework it a bit.
Yeah.
yeah.
We also talked about the aspect ratio. I mean, this,
Right, tall, height, width,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's not shown in here either, and that's gotta be, it should be reflected in there. If we're putting a definition in.
Yeah, but that's technology dependent, and it's also probably controlled by the FCC and, other standards, so I wouldn't be overly, regulatory on that, description or, aspects of it.
Yes, you're right, Jim, there's limits in what we can locally do.
Yeah.
And it does actually, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Tracy's recording, yeah.
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
we also, I believe in the previous section 4, I think 4, 3, it talks about height, maximum heights and stuff, there is
Yeah.
some thing, but it's all reviewed and approved as part of the site plan.
Yeah,
So,
understood. Mark, go back to your comment. If the regulation is from the FAA or FCC, then why do we have anything in here?
No, there's certain parts that the federal government does let you still
Right.
aesthetically
Right.
try to cite it and minimize the impact to your neighborhood and your stuff.
I understand,
But
so,
the actual heights, if there's a line of sight
Yep.
to make it function,
yep.
Jim's right,
Yeah.
there's some limitations on that
Right.
aspect.
But we should only have in this document what pertains to us of what we can oversee.
Yeah, right.
It should not contain anything that says, whatever the FCC and FAA, or any other agency that has the authorization to approve that, there wouldn't be a reason for us to either state it again or state something differently either.
You could have something differently, but when it came to final approval, if the
Yeah.
applicant said X by federal law,
Yeah.
we would listen to it anyway. We'd be preempted. I guess I'd defer to the lawyer on preemption.
and I'm not sure if there is a reference that you could cite in here, it's like, see, government, FCC, or basically within the limitations of the FCC, which is
Right.
a governing body, so.
Right, all of these provisions would refer to, like has been stated, aesthetics, sighting. There's a section in here that indicates that the maximum height shall be the minimum that's needed to function satisfactorily. But, anything regarding just the functionality of it, the village it couldn't change. But that doesn't mean that the village doesn't have a say in where these can be located as compatible with other uses around it. And if the village,
Yeah.
if zoning ordinance was completely silent to it, then, just saying that it was, say a special use, then you really could apply for it anywhere. It would be a lot less restrictive than it is.
So where's the part that you just stated of,
The
the
minimum height.
functionality of it?
Yeah, number
Because to me, that leaves
3.
the height open then.
N3.
Which is the height.
And I know of municipalities that said, look, you don't need it to be 100 feet. You can your functional report, because there's usually a consultant that does say what the functionality and line
Right,
of
but
sight.
we
and
wouldn't
it
want to
could
get
be-
in a situation where, let's say, we're limiting it to, 30 feet or 50 feet, and they come in with 200 feet, and that's what we need to have for it to function properly.
Yeah, no, I mean, this statement that's in here is pretty common, that the village has the right to obtain a consultant to counter what the applicant's request is, and then the applicant has to pay for the village's
Yep.
consultant. If it would be the ZBA denying the application, if it was requested at a higher height than what the village was going to allow, then, and, you know, the village board upholding that, then that applicant has the right to appeal that decision, you know, and then it would just be a battle of the experts at that point, so.
And then one other comment, and again, I'm remembering from last month, but the color of the tower says must have a galvanized silver or gray finish, and I thought we had talked about that white was also either common or allowed or used. I'm going by memory.
Yeah. I do remember having a discussion, I don't remember the exact agreement, if that was, if there ever did come to an agreement. Yeah.
Well, maybe something just to be looked at,
Yeah.
not decided tonight, but looked at, because it could be in the minutes from last meeting, but I thought we discussed it.
Yeah, would your thought process be that they should allow
Yeah.
other colors or?
Well, white.
Well, white, okay,
Yeah.
so that maybe the inclusive of white would be, to be considered, okay. All right, one other, I just found another thing of stealth design for Jim, just for the recording, and November 2, Charlie, but I just suggest he just does a word search for stealth design and remove those. All right, pressing on, I think that's the end of 5.2. And then 5.3, which was temporary easements, they removed because that's all gonna be in the municipal code. We talked about that a little bit earlier, right?
That was it, right.
And I believe that is the end of the article. However, then the next thing would be the permitted table, which you've kind of already touched on right now. I don't know if you had a chance to look at, if you thought of any, that was your homework.
We did our homework, Ralph.
you? Good.
But I may have slept a little long.
But was there any other things to add or delete in there that you had thought about or came across? And we can always review it again. It's not the final, but I know we've gone over a few things here, and we've added and taken stuff in and out.
Is a warehouse club like a Costco, is that?
C2. Yeah, yeah. I've got a fundamental either problem or question.
Okay.
We're looking at zoning districts,
Yes.
but yet the village is made up of discrete, non-contiguous zoning elements, or, zoned parcels. So how can you have create zoning districts when there is no continuity?
Districts don't have to have continuity.
Okay,
I'd say in a perfect world, if you started from scratch and put
Right.
the thing, then you'd say, okay, here's all the C, here's all the
Yeah.
B, here's all the,
Yeah,
that would
you-
be- but over time, it's just grown and just,
but it seems like,
changed over
we're
time.
starting from, the exact opposite. We're not even talking about districts that then had modifications to them to allow different uses, but now we're talking about things that are all completely scattered.
But I think it's one of the intents of this, is getting the zoning ordinance together and then looking at the map and finding out,
Yes.
hey, why is there farming in the middle of a residential area? Or why
Yeah.
is there, and that's gonna be our job in the map, is to
Right.
say, okay, then let's try to make this more contiguous and more,
Yeah.
this is all residential R1, this is
Yeah.
all, C2.
So the idea is then going forward, those would be the identified zoning uses as opposed to the, like I said, leaving a farming zoning parcel in the middle of residential that could be, well, I guess it could still be farming forever because it's going to be grandfathered.
Unless it's got a house and a dwelling unit
Yeah.
on it, it's not,
Yeah.
they're not farming it.
Right, but nobody will be able to create a farming unit out of something that's residential,
Unless it gets rezoned.
yeah.
Right,
So,
the verbiage zoning district really, I mean, zoning in its most basic sense did not predate land uses. I mean, the properties that were well outside of urban areas never had zoning districts when the uses were first established. So, you can go to a more urban, suburban area or urban area in Chicago and you'll have defined districts.
Yeah.
Residential here, commercial along major thoroughfares, whatever it might be. But that same verbiage is still used in areas like the village, just because that's how we define the uses based on the districts in which they fall. And yes, you could have one or two parcels that are, within a C1 district, and then right next to it, a residential district that takes up all the other area. But we still have to use that same terminology, but I get it, yeah.
Our goal is to try to get as close as you can to having homogeneous, the ideas of, if this is the C district, the commercial district, let's try to get that in one area, and so, and just making sure the zoning reflects the use of the property. If the use of the property is commercial, but it's zoned as farm, then we should.
So it's really
should
the
match.
intent of the area that you call a zoning district and not
It's the use.
necessarily the ultimate use.
A little bit of both. I
It's a
mean,
little bit of both, but
if you think, way back when, the governing body, whether it was the township or the county, they had to assign a district, a specific district designation to each parcel.
Did they?
It-
Did they really have to sign districts? or
When
were
the
they just
zoning, when the
allowing-
original county zoning ordinance was created, there were already people living in the
Yeah.
area, and there were landowners.
Yeah.
So they had, someone had to look, a planner likely had to look at the map, the parcel map, Sidwell's, and say, okay, we're going to assign specific districts to all of these parcels. In some areas, it's
Okay.
easier than others. You have large
Yeah.
areas of land that are agricultural, so they have farming or agricultural use. In the villages downtown here, it's probably a little harder because you have a little bit more mixed. But someone had to, at one point, make up the original map that then the village adopted, so.
And then you get
That was
Yeah.
on the county, not the
County,
township.
Right.
yeah, the
But
county.
remember too, the formation of the villages comes years and years after
Right.
14,000 people were living in the township.
And that's another thing. I mean, in some communities, it was a whole bunch of farmland, and then a village was created, and everything was platted with a residential
Right.
district and a commercial district. Here, you already had the uses in place, and then the village was created, so it's even more, it's a little different.
Okay.
But the district verbiage can still be used.
We're still playing catch-up, Jim.
And that's why this village will always have some kind of zoning laws and districts that are not relatable to Park Ridge and the more
Oh,
built-up
yeah,
areas.
yeah.
They just won't relate,
Uh,
and they
Okay.
shouldn't.
Thank you.
Under the tables, the ones in red, I believe the ones we discussed or might have been changed. So, well, we talked about the manufactured homes not being a permitted use, mixed use, department store, warehouse club, superstore, making it a special use.
Well,
Uh,
how are you gonna special use something so urban as a warehouse, club, superstore, et cetera?
My recollection was that we don't anticipate something like this happening, but if it did happen, it would have to come to us by a special use, so that we would have a say into it if they wanted to make some land, like along
Could you
47.
just say like anything else that it's not permitted?
That's an option, that's an option.
Yeah, but it's good to let yourself have some flexibility in the future, because you don't know what will develop on 38 or 47, for instance. It could be a special use. You don't want to outright allow, but you give yourself the flexibility to possibly approve one of these special uses.
Unless you do want to outright
Yeah.
not allow it. So then that's the discussion. Do you want to say that, no, we don't want any of that here at all? You don't want a department store
Yeah.
here at all? Or
Well,
do
that's
what?
sort of what St. Charles is for.
Yeah.
It's got all the,
Right,
all those, multi-varied, box stores and
sure.
and such.
So-
And,
So it's-
I guess I'm concerned about things that are gonna look appealing as a tax solution, which tends to hit a lot of communities that, we've got to grow ourselves out commercially because we want more tax revenues. And that sort of underlies what, things like this are gonna look appealing kind of thing when, we said we're gonna try to limit how much taxes we're gonna be, having in the area,
You don't have that issue here, though, because you don't even have a local sales tax. And you don't have a property tax, so you don't,
You wouldn't benefit.
this
you wouldn't benefit
Well-
from that kind of development anyway, because you don't have the ability as a village right now to collect a local sales tax, which is very unique in the 250-some suburbs of Chicago. We're probably in the 1% club that doesn't benefit from any kind of local sales tax, just the sales tax share that the state sends, that's it. So I think you're fair on that, but you could get a special use that generated jobs or paid an annual fee to exist on 47 or 38 someday.
I think, calling it out as special use is very appropriate, and, it's the C2 zoning, so it's all covered,
I think so.
yeah.
And it's still hard to get. They have to
Yeah.
prove that they can
And-
mitigate negative consequences to get the special use approved.
And it would have to be probably would have to be an annexation.
Well,
Or it could be part of the annexation agreement.
It,
but-
it would be correct, or it would be a rezoning of a current parcel in the village. I mean, right now, it looks like the proposal is for just in C2 as a special use, and looking at the current parcels in the village, the only, outside of the downtown area, which is built up and occupied, the only other C2 parcel you have is the lodge on 64. That's being,
Yeah.
it's being remodeled now, will be opening as a restaurant. So there are no, it does not appear that there are any other C2 parcels available.
Right.
So like you said, it would have to be a rezoning or an annexation
Rezoning of a farm.
of a current
Parcel,
parcel.
yeah.
Or something with an annexation agreement. You're right,
Yes.
Jim.
Yeah, or you just don't permit it. It's
Yeah.
either way. And if you don't permit it, and then someone was interested, or an entity was interested in building a store, they would have to come to the village with a proposal to rezone a current parcel.
well,
So-
why not permit it, and then if in the future, some future politic body wants it, then they can change the zoning code, just as we have updated the zoning code through the
Well-
years and such. So I just fear it's a backdoor, that the very thing, the semi-rural community, I don't see how that, vehicle dealerships, et cetera, fit into that mode. And also, that's,
That's
and
absolutely
you
right.
can always change it down the road if you want to.
It would be a text amendment, that's all it would be. You'd have to, it would start as a text amendment, and then it'd be a map amendment if someone wanted
Was
to,
successful.
if it was, if the proposal was accepted, they would apply, I won't say the proposal was accepted, if they, let's say, got favorable support from the village, they could apply, they would have to apply for a text amendment and a map amendment, and then likely a special PUD, because it's gonna be a larger development. And then in some communities, the village, if they're in support of the development, they sign on as an applicant to the text amendment. And sometimes the map amendment too, but definitely the text amendment. So it can be done either way.
So so then I guess the question would be, if you look at some of the other things, like, there's airport, so, but I think we don't think of like something like O'Hare, but it could be, what you could have like a fly-in, there are fly-in communities where you have a subdivision that has a runway in it, and it's basically small airplanes that fly in.
Like
And
Olson,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, similar to Olson, but yeah, they'd actually have a community of houses that would have like hangars, and they would fly, so there are airport communities. So that's another, whether you want that or not, is the question then.
I
But,
think Boone County, I think, has some
yes, they do, yeah, because I know people,
hangars.
Yep, they have a-
backyard.
yeah, and then you just taxi out to the runway and you can take off and stuff, so, yeah, so. But that is, so this is not, these are all just in, it's in red, just because it's been recent, so if there's something that we don't want, then that's the other thing to look at, and say, okay, I'd have to go look at the
Well, who was
definition of
putting these
warehouse.
forward? Was this group putting these forward?
Huh?
Were you all suggesting vehicle dealerships and Costco-type facilities? Or is it coming from our administrator?
I have not suggested that, but I believe it would be coming from staff, but if I'm correct, I think that's where it is coming from, so. I believe we did have some discussions on some of these things, like, massage therapy, but we didn't have a discussion on airports. But I know we had discussions on things like massage therapy, physical therapy, mobile food service. I remember having those discussions. There's another one, according to wireless communications stealth. So that will have to break that out again under communications for Jim, that's on table 5.1, wire communications stealth, which is page 16. He has it broken down in two separate sections, so we'll have to get more clarification.
Well,
on that.
we go back and address Jerry's question, because just to avoid any confusion,
Mhm.
so I don't recall the name of the consultant that provided the data.
Camaros?
Yeah.
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 So the way I understand it is that documentation was provided to the village, and through, whatever twists and turns, we were put together to review that and be able to make some recommendations to the board. And I think Jim Brown's role, being the only one on the staff, is working with documents that were provided to him, and then that he's updated and provided suggestions and recommendations to our temporary zoning commission. So it's not us that are saying we want to have this, and, that's, did I say that right?
I would agree with that
Well-
100%, yeah.
Except I think that everything in red here is Mr. Brown's suggestions from his experience that should have been included or were either deleted or not included or
Or
mis-
changed.
Included,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
say,
yeah.
from the Camero study.
Yep.
So these are, his suggestions based upon what he sees as workable definitions, let's call it, or suggestions.
And
So-
his suggestions based on experience.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that we've gone along with what those suggestions are. So I
Right.
can remember from the beginning, we've had a, pretty good debate, and it hasn't always been one-sided. We have different thoughts and opinions. So just because staff is making a recommendation doesn't mean that we've agreed to include that in our work.
And I believe the last meeting we had, that was, like I said, the homework was basically to review some of
Yeah.
this and to go over and look at this, because we knew that those things were included or would not be included. So, so we can take, and then, of course, there's not, a couple people aren't here, but this is not set in stone by any means.
Right, no,
We're gonna take a
I
look
understand
at it,
that.
But no, but you
Yeah.
bring up good
No,
points.
Well, part of this is my understanding, and from hearing, both several legal opinions as well as the consultants and such, as well as, of course, just general sentiment that we've run across, is that in a zoning code, if it's not mentioned, it's not permitted.
Correct, my understanding.
So if you put in a warehouse club, now you're indicating there's potential permit. And why would you do that? Well, you want warehouse clubs, or you want the revenue they'll generate. So that's, sort of sort of confounds me, I guess.
Yeah,
So
right. Okay.
that's my cautionary.
Okay, no, well taken,
all.
well taken.
Thank you.
Yeah. So going back to what we said, we talked about, what do we want or not, what we don't want. I don't think we're gonna decide that tonight. But I would say that we need to look at this again, and then maybe say, hey, is there some stuff that we really don't want permitted?
Yeah.
And then we can come back at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So that
So
would be.
go back to what Mark said earlier, and Jerry, you could speak volumes on this. We're not following any other blueprint from another municipality. Because the village was formed out of duress. And so we had this property, this land, these uses, whether they were good, bad, right, wrong, or indifferent, and everything that we're doing is after the fact. So I think Jim's, and Mark, I'm sure yours too, out of the 200-plus suburbs, you have defined municipal boundaries, and they back up, and everything is laid out like that. And here we're, how old now?
2007, 18 years.
Okay, so I mean, we're still working around trying to make things workable for everybody. But the rural residential designation, you know, we throw that around. It's not a term that you see somewhere where it's clearly defined. And when I drive around the township, I don't see a lot of rural residential anymore. I just see residential.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, the large horse farms have been converted to sometimes to a small subdivision.
Okay, I apologize, I got off the topic.
I think it's related, but that's okay. So if I'm looking at some of the red lined items, just for quick discussion, then we'll press on. I mean, obviously, there's, some of the concerns I heard, like Mr. Johnson, is like, department store, warehouse, superstore, garden supplies, pawn shop, vehicle dealership, one there. And then, I think airport, warehouse, which could be a warehouse for anything, so that might be fine, because it could be, and then truck transportation facility. I'm not sure if that would be something we would want as well. And, let's see, medical, dental, specialties, charitable, agricultural support, crop or animal, okay, those are the ones that stick out to me, was that we should
Yep.
probably
Yep.
discuss next week, or next meeting, I should say, all right? As to
Okay.
whether we really want those or not.
Yeah.
The only other one I thought about was the fitness, we got one below 10,000 square feet and one above. They're basically making below 10,000 permitted, but above is special use, which I think is all right, because if you really wanted something a little bit bigger, it'd have to be a special use. We're trying to keep it smaller. All right. I think that's all I have for that table. Then if we want to go into the definitions, unless we want to do anything else, we just go into the definitions and start looking at the highlighted ones and see if we can choose which definition we prefer. If you can read sideways. I know I'm the same thing with that. So the first page, which is what, page 26 of your overall, I think it's overall packages. It has definitions. Let's see, we've got uses and definition. Okay, for this first one, it's just that the federal code and regulations, talking about agriculture. I think that's what he used. He used the definition for agriculture based on the federal, that'd be my impression. Definition from federal code of agriculture. I think there was some discussion on what agriculture is, whether it's in your backyard or whatever, so we're using that.
I'd say the Code of Federal Regulations would be a good one to follow
Yeah,
on.
yeah, right. The next page, let's see, I think it's gonna be the bottom, yeah, I think it's the continuation of the federal code of regulations on that upper right-hand corner, which is on the listed page, the paper page 19, or electronically page 28. And then the next red one I get to is about auto body repair and auto body parts and accessories, which is, looks like page 21 of the hard copy and 29. Why can't rotate this? Better. All right, so, I'm just reading through the definition. And then we just split those two, remember, yeah, we just split the two, it was auto body repair and auto
Yeah.
parts and accessory sales, we said those were separate.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, I'm good with those.
Good, yeah.
Okay, all right, pressing on. Page, I'm just reading page 22, hard page 22 at the bottom of the printed. There's nothing on there, there's no red on 23,
Yep.
there's no red on 24, no red on 25, no red on page 26, nothing on 27, or 28, or 29, or 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Guess I should just tell you where the next one is, huh? All right, page 38. Excuse me,
Ralph, I'm sorry, on page 33, so
33.
I still see some notes, maybe I didn't, maybe I ran out of red ink. On 33, it said combined with professional services as a question mark.
Oh, yeah, I see that now.
So I think there, actually, I would tell you, let's just go back quickly and see, there are notes in the right-hand column, they just didn't happen to be in red
Okay.
on what I printed either.
Okay.
But there is some notes that Jim put in there.
yeah.
Just
Oh,
want
I
to make
see.
sure we
Yep.
don't miss them.
Yep, okay, all right, yep, no, good catch, all right. So it's basically under comments, right?
Yeah,
So-
just that right-hand column.
Yeah, okay, all right, so after 22, let's see, on page 23, there's no, 22, there's no comments. All right, so 23, it says camps have been included in this review, children's camps in Stocker, so camps grounds. He just entered the word camp. It was under campground, instead of just campground, it was camps/campgrounds. An area used for transient occupancy by camping and tents, some temporary sleeping quarters. Not sure how much whitewater rafting will be going on there, but it could be. Cabins, washrooms, food service, recreational facilities, equipment. I think it's just like if you had an outdoor camp. It seems quite a bit more expanded. So it's not like rather than just a campground, they say, oh, you can actually have a camp now where you could actually have like zip lines and climbing tree or climbing walls and things like that. That's my impression is that, so if that's whether we want that or not, I think that's a good thing, or, yeah, it sounds like being outside doing that kind of stuff sounds pretty good, yeah. Yeah. Any comments on the camps or campgrounds? Okay, how about the next one, cannabis, just a new term and definition. It's a non-dispensing business establishment, cultivated center, craft grower processing organization or transporting organization, those two terms are defined.
Those are prohibited currently in the zoning ordinance, they just weren't defined. So I think that's why
Yeah.
Jim added them. So there's no question as to what
So
they're
it is
talking about.
prohibited, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Ralph,
And-
Yes.
Ralph, back on, I'm sorry, on
Yeah.
19,
19?
under video game arcades, he's got comments on there too.
Oh, okay, did I miss that one, or, oh, video game arcades, would they fall under here or gaming, gambling establishments? So amusement, oh, I see, so amusement facility? Well, if you think about video game arcades and stuff, well, video game arcades? I'm thinking first of all, like video gambling, I'm thinking about, rather than like a Chuck E. Cheese, for lack of a better term, would be video game. Which I could see under an amusement facility, a facility for spectator and participatory uses conducted within an enclosed building, near gymnasiums, sports arenas, bowling alleys.
I think his, if I'm reading into it, is, I think the gambling, a gambling arcade should be separate from the video game arcade.
Yeah,
Separate from amusement.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think that would be, even though it is amusement, but I think the intent there is,
To differentiate.
yes.
It
just to
depends on if you
differentiate.
win or lose, of how amused you are.
How you lose.
Yeah, I would say video game arcades would fall under here, amusement. but
Yeah.
not fall under gaming or gambling
Yeah.
establishments, all right? You good?
But right above it, you have amusement arcade. It seems to talk about the same,
Yeah, that would be
Thing.
video game.
An indoor facility, or pinball, computer games, or other similar electronic games, yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it just,
Yeah, I think we want to distinctly separate the two, and we'll just give that note to Jim Brown to do that, I think.
I don't even know what the comment, because really, at the end of that says, amusement arcade does not include bingo games or gambling devices.
Yeah, so this
So
comment,
It's pretty, I'm not really sure about the comment, so we'll have Jim clarify what he's trying to get clarification for, because I don't get that.
He might just want us to say, yes, we want them to be
Okay.
very distinct
Okay.
and separate issues.
All right. Okay, animal care facility, animal hospital and/or veterinarian. So it's a change in terminology from animal care, it's the next page, a facility which nobody says or uses, to the more commonly used animal hospital and veterinarian, okay.
okay,
Animal care facility, so a facility where animals receive medical, surgical treatment, care during times, animal hospital may be used for kenneling as such, yeah, short-term, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that.
there's art gallery, or is that page 20? Are you, where are you at, Roll?
I am on page 20, yes.
Okay,
I was looking at the animal care facility versus the
Yeah.
new animal hospital and veterinarian. I was
Yeah.
just agreeing with it,
terminology,
Yeah.
okay.
all right? And you were saying art gallery, that's the next one?
Yeah, it says deleted.
Establishment itself. Such as a library and museum which may also display.
I don't see. I don't-
Category deleted, this would fall under retail sales and service. So they're saying this is under retail sales and service, an establishment that sells, loans, and/or displays paintings, sculpture, photographs, video art, or works of art. It's not a cultural facility, it's not like a museum. So I think he's just trying to put it under sales and
So fall
service.
under-
If you're selling art, it's under sales and service. No matter what you're selling it. I can understand it.
So if it's part of an art gallery, but it's the sales portion, then it falls under retail.
Yeah, so if you're just showing art, that's
Okay.
something different.
Yeah.
It says not like a museum. So I would agree with that. You're just kind of making it simpler to keep it all under one. All right.
Well, I'm sorry, wait, can we?
Thinking? Yeah.
I know this is confusing here, but in his definition of art gallery, if you just take out sells, then you still have the existence of an art gallery without retail sales.
I think it would fall
If
under
his objection
the,
is to sales,
yeah, I think it would fall under the museum category, because
Museum,
there is
yeah.
a definition for museum, and it talks about
okay, back,
objects or items of, educational, historical significance,
Yeah,
Okay.
it says art gallery does
Cultural
not include
significance.
cultural facility such as a library or museum, which may also display paintings, sculptures, photo and video art. So I think the sales actually, so.
So,
Yeah.
jumping to page 26 then, under museum,
Okay,
read that last sentence. I know it's a incorrect word, but the saying preserve doesn't show up in any other part of those definitions. So I'm not sure where he's going with that.
museum should be included in the category title, something like an art gallery which preserves art, yeah, well, that's just a comment, for educational or cultural purposes would fall under this category.
But it's in conflict with the art gallery when it talks about sales. Here it's stating that the art gallery is where
No, I think
objects are displayed.
Well, maybe I'm.
Oh, no, yeah.
I think I'm reading it like I think he intended.
Yeah.
He's trying to define museum and art gallery. Museum is displaying, not selling anything. Art galleries are there to sell stuff.
Okay.
Or loan, or,
Okay, yeah. Yep.
okay, all right.
Yep.
New definition for convenience store food mart. I don't even see, I guess we didn't have one before, so they've added just above museum, since you were right there.
Yep.
Convenience stores, food marts. Okay, that's just a definition there, okay. All right, so where will we leave off at 22? Nope, we were campgrounds on 23, and then, so cannabis dispensing organization was top of 24, and that basically is because we didn't have anything, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense, we wanted to find that. Then on 20, I don't see any comments on page 25. I do see comments on page 26, which we just talked about the museum and the convenience store, so I think we've taken care of those and accepted
Yep.
those. 27, I don't see any comments. What do we got here? I'm just trying to decipher 27, looks like a very long one. Department store, warehouse, club, or superstore, okay. So let's, rather than look at that whole thing, whether you want to keep it or not, determines whether we want to have that definition or not. All right, so I'm just gonna skip over that, because I'm not gonna waste the time defining something if we don't want it, all right? All right, the next page was just a continuation of that definition. I saw no other comments on 29. Page 30, golf course driving range. Attractive land, 9 holes playing, golf tees, no change. Do we need this? Might be similar to amusement outdoor. I think it's very different.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, I would, very different. I would leave it
I
in.
would leave that in.
I would leave it in, all right. Leave that in, that was under golf district, we'll leave it in. Next page, a couple categories under government facility, public administration, title change, used by LBCS, which I'm not really sure what that is, but he's probably he's referencing it here as a title change. This title change aligns alphabetically, okay. So we're looking at facilities owned and operated by a government agency. So it'd just like be this building, you know, facilities that are owned by, operated by the government.
It's the land-based classification standards from the APA, from the Planning Association.
Okay, I knew it had to be some very, okay.
Planner lingo.
Yeah, exactly, planner lingo, okay. That's fine, I don't have a problem with that. Grocery store, supermarket, or bakery, there's no category in the existing matrix that covers grocery store, specialty food, and we don't have one either, so I think it's good to have that in there, because since we don't have that, it'd be nice to define that.
Under the public administration,
Yes,
I think that should state, nor does it include field houses or recreation centers. You can have a field house without having a park district. The way it's written here,
or
it's
just
that it would
strike
be a
park district?
specific park
Yeah,
district
yeah,
field
right,
house.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Does not include field houses or recreational centers, which would be considered a park or school building, which would be considered school. That, we really don't have a park district, so that's a good point. So, but a school, does not include park district field houses or recreation centers.
You could say it does not include a government-owned field house or recreation center. You'd still
Yeah.
consider it a park,
Yeah,
right?
because they could maybe build something like that.
The
so-
village could own something, the township could own something.
Yeah, right. So if we strike park district, we just put government. Okay,
Yeah, if the township open space ever went active recreation, they'd need that
Well,
flexibility.
the township has active
Yeah,
recreation.
Yeah.
baseball fields,
yeah, right.
et cetera.
Okay, good catch. All right. Good enough, Joe? Should we move on?
I'm glad that we have a defined, thorough definition of the massage there.
Okay. All right, so,
Okay.
all right, so I'm on to page 33 now. That was the investment banking, securities brokerages. We want to combine that with professional services. I think that was talked about before. I think that was fine to put that under professional services. I don't think it need to be listed separately. And then basically, they're asking whether the lawn and garden supplies would be just combined with greenhouse nurseries, and that's on page 33. They might be two separate things. I'd say keep them separate, but. They come into, if you're selling outdoor power equipment, in other words, if you think about a nursery, like Wasco Nursery, it might be very different than a lawn and garden, rather than just a nursery. I would just keep
Well,
them-
actually, if you think about, what's the one across the street here, across the, very, next to the,
Trellis.
Oh, right next to the path where they
Yeah,
sell, they sell feed and stuff like that, or?
yeah,
Yeah,
trellis.
Yes.
Trellis, yeah. That's really part of their definition,
yeah. I say keep them separate.
so I would keep them
Yeah,
separate.
keep them separate, so say
Yeah.
no to that. Could this category be combined with greenhouse and nursery? We'll just say no.
No.
That's 33. That's our input. All right, there's the definition of massage therapy, and it looks like it comes from the Illinois Practice Act, so I guess I'm not gonna go any further than that.
It's not
Okay.
professional, it's practice.
Yeah. Page 35, definition. Let's see, top of the page, we've got medical dental office. I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
They added optometrist to the definition.
Sure.
That also could be grouped into professional services, could also be called simply medical clinic, urgent care facilities included here.
Well,
So the question is whether you want to include it into professional services or not.
I thought we had talked about the urgent care facility being different than the medical dental
Yeah,
office.
I believe we did talk about that, yes.
well, in his notes, he defined the hospital and the medical clinic as, this doesn't sound like this is what's in the.
Staff notes?
In his staff notes is not what's on the table.
We've got medical and dental offices. I'm just going to go one more page to see if there's anything else. No, that there.
He's got medical clinic or medical office is his new heading.
Well, the urgent care is defined as something other than a medical office.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it should be separate.
I would agree. I would be separate.
So I think his note of include here would be no.
Okay? So medical, dental, would you want to include into professional services? Say no. Urgent care facilities included here? No.
No.
Yeah, it's a different thing. We talked about that number.
Yep.
Okay, all right. No.
Well, again, from his staff notes, I assume that's, because he's talking here about medical clinic or medical office. And that seems to be the revision to the column 1, medical/dental office.
So we wanted to keep those separate, right? Or, I mean, the offices, we're basically, offices are one thing, but urgent care is
Urgent.
another. And that's what we're trying to tell you.
That's the key.
Right,
That's what
but
we're
that's
talking
not what he's done here.
Yeah.
He's it says including emergency treatment under medical clinic or medical office. And that's in his page 3 of his staff notes.
Okay. So our direction then to Jim is like, we want to keep those separate. So we want
Yep.
medical offices are one thing, we want urgent care or.
Separate.
Separate.
Yes.
We want to keep those separate.
Yes.
So we'll have that, and Jim can take that off the notes from what we're giving him then.
Yeah.
All right, page 35, I think it's done with 35.
And nature
wait.
preserve, he's got a
Oh, yeah.
note combined
Yeah.
with park. No, that should be separate.
No.
Yes, I would agree. No, don't combine with park, okay. Next page, nursery greenhouse retail, it just says nursery greenhouse, eliminate retail in the title, okay. Okay, it's just a minor title, I have no problem with that, you can just eliminate retail. Doesn't change, doesn't change.
Wholesale nurseries that exist.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I suppose there could be a difference. Because a wholesale nursery could almost be closer to like farmland.
Mm-hmm.
Because a retail, you gotta have sales office.
Yeah.
Right, right. So the question then, I guess, is do you want to eliminate the retail? Or maybe we're making two separate items there? So a greenhouse nursery establishment where flowers, shrubbery, vegetable trees, and other horticultural products are propagated and sold, and may include gardening and landscaping supplies, products such as hardware, garden tools, utensils, stone paving, bricks, and other items for sale.
Or just add retail and add wholesale to retail, and that would cover both. Retail and wholesale.
Yeah, would you want to separate? Yeah,
You can,
yeah. Because wholesale would be quite different. If
Yeah.
wholesale would be quite
Yeah,
different, then
yeah.
it would be quite different than retail. If it's- if it-
Typically, their appointments, you have to have
Yeah,
to.
yeah. I'd say then, on second thought, then let's retain it and then just make the distinction, there is wholesale and retail.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Next one, he says no change, but then he's got comments. Catch all for all other offices not more specifically defined, e.g. dentist office. Just office.
But he included dental in,
Yeah, we already got dental
Yeah.
in the medical already.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Let's not overthink an
Yep,
office.
I agree,
Yeah.
I agree. Outdoor dining, this is really accessory use and should be covered elsewhere in Article 8. So I guess he wants to remove it. Okay, that's no problem.
Well, okay, so it's not no change, it's,
He's just gonna,
well, again, I think we confuse sometimes outdoor dining that is outdoor on the property versus outdoor on,
sidewalk or.
Sidewalk.
Yeah, right, or
Yeah.
encroaches into
yes,
public.
now, if it's accessory uses when it's on the sidewalk, I thought,
You had to get permission for that,
right, but if it's a patio on his property,
yeah.
that's outdoor dining.
It says outdoor dining is approved separately as a principal use. Outdoor dining areas may be roofed or covered on, I don't know. This is really an accessory use and should be covered elsewhere, Article 8. I don't have a problem moving it to Article 8, if
Yeah,
that's what,
I
if you think
guess.
it's more appropriate, but, okay.
Okay,
Next,
8, Article 8 then.
yeah, Article 8, move it to 8. Next page, which would be 37,
Just the last part on 6.
yeah, right.
No
Park.
with the park and forest preserve.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Park versus combine with nature preserve, I agree. Yeah,
No.
do not combine, correct. Personal service establishment does not include body art establishment, okay? And these are, I guess, some of the changes in our culture, so I guess we want to be, I guess, prepared for that. An establishment that provides frequent or recurrent needs as personal nature.
So is he saying, instead of using the terminology health club to fitness center? Is that a more up-to-date identifier for that?
I think what he's getting at is he wants to remove it and have it as a separate use so that you
Yeah.
could keep it to certain districts.
Because I think you said that since they're frequently larger facilities, so if it's a larger facility, we want to treat it separately than something that would be a lot smaller.
Right.
Yeah, well, actually, I would agree with that then. If we're gonna have something larger like that, we wanna have that like a special use or something, to treat it separately. So, yeah, that's fine with treat it separately. Okay, it looks like some new definitions for pawn shop, pharmacy, drugstore, physical therapy.
Okay.
He just made a comment that some are independent without drive-through windows, so. And there's some new definition for physical therapy center and physical therapist. And then, name change only for worst places of worship. And then, the private club or lodge at the bottom in red. And then on the top of the next page. And basically, the current one and the new one, and I think he had that in the,
Yeah, it's
earlier in the comment staff notes,
Yeah,
right?
page 1.
We're on page, what, 47 now? There we go. This is the,
Okay, it looks like that's what he's got pasted in red on 3830, on page 38 and 39.
both red, right?
That's what he has in his staff notes.
The suggestion definition is the second one, all right?
Yes.
So, okay. That's whether you want it, that or not. It looks, it's more defined, talks about potential eating, drinking establishments, rooms for assembly. And, it says not for profit, I'm sorry, does not include clubs, yes, that are for profit.
His definition is fine.
Yeah, Right.
It's more inclusive, and I think it's better defined.
okay. All right, let's go with the new definition,
Okay.
that'd be agreed. What was it, I think we're on 47 there, right? Page 40, or which, 39, I think, is that right? Am I caught up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Then on the next page, new category combining all types of care for elderly handicapped. I know we talked a little bit about that. Either a residential healthcare facility or a housing services for the elderly. I'm just reading over the definitions again.
See, and I think that those should be separate. In his notes where he's talking about elderly, handicap, yeah, there's facilities specifically for elderly and facilities specifically for, need-based. And I think those are two different types of facilities.
It's fairly broad, so I'm not really seeing the difference there, but, this one, the new one talks about retirement housing services, congregate living, facility, assisted living, life care, continuing care, so basically all the different steps through life, assistance. In graduating steps, this one,
Then you better drop
that's why
Yeah.
I think there's an element of this in the description of, may want to examine congregate living facility and treat that separately. So, I mean, that's to your point. I think it should be separate.
Yeah, he just says such as the elderly, which
Right.
really is not necessary, right? So, it's just an example, doesn't, it's
Yep.
not all inclusive or everything, but
Yep,
such as the elderly would be basically, yeah. You could just modify that definition, just like
Yeah.
remove that,
So just remove.
such as the elderly.
Elderly in, well, I would say remove elderly in the housing in the title.
Yes, and for the,
Right.
yeah, housing services,
But I'm okay with having that line, such as the elderly. It's,
yeah, just, I guess, yeah.
Call it residential care facility, is that not?
yeah.
Well, that's what he
More
has.
inclusive?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just an example, as Jim's saying.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not-
Yeah, yeah.
well, if you
Well,
did,
I
if you
know-
did separate them, that would just give you,
We had this discussion, and I thought housing services falls into either providing housing or providing counseling for housing. And
I think that, Jim, that was different than the
social
residential
assistance,
care.
welfare, and charitable services is what, we added by his staff notes, so that's separate. And housing services covers, sounds like it overlaps.
all right, so let's just break it down, what do we want? So.
I'm thinking-
You got two things here, do you
Yeah.
want, you want to be able to provide, and what kind of situations do you, or what kind of facilities do you want?
This is a physical facility.
Yes,
So,
the current definition is a facility that provides following types of licensed 24-hour medical and non-medical. That's what the current thing, now it's saying establishments, so establishments or
yeah,
that offer a wide range of housing services. They're just trying to redefine it, but do we want to make sure that it's all encompassing in one definition, or do you want to separate to say? Because really what we're saying, do you want assisted living, or some type of assisted living for those who are just mentally or physically unable to care for themselves? And just put that in one category or one definition?
okay, I'm missing something here.
Okay,
We're talking about assisted living, regardless of, for whoever, whether it's mental health or physical or elderly,
yeah, younger or whatever.
assisted living,
Yes, the people who cannot fully care for
Yes.
themselves and need assistance,
right? So,
varying degrees. So we have to define that, what that is, so that can be
Yeah.
appropriately zoned. So it seems to me if you made it one definition fairly broad to encompass,
housing, custodial.
because I don't think, are we worried about zoning, separating those things out, like somebody who's in hospice, does that be zoned different than
I just
somebody-
think they're different facilities.
Okay,
My 93-year-old father lives in an independent residential environment where they don't offer assisted living or nursing home.
okay,
Okay.
And a mile away, they have the same thing, independent, and then if you need help, then
Go
you
to
go
the
to the
next-
next building, it's
Yeah.
assisted, and
Right.
then you need
Yeah.
more help nursing. And I think that's different, those for the, I'll say elderly, in my view, are different than the other residential care units, regardless of age, where people
okay.
need help.
So then the question is, do we want to separate those two and say, here, this is something else? To me, it sounds like basically there's assistance, but it's non-medical. And then there'd be assistance which may require medical,
Yeah?
Yes,
all right?
yes.
That's the way I'm
And-
seeing it breaking down.
Right, because the skilled nursing part is a whole other aspect of that.
Right, and you can have somebody come in and take care, cook
Yep.
food for you, like,
Yep,
say,
yep.
independent living, clean, cook, or whatever. So why don't we have them break it down into,
Yeah.
like, basically medical, requiring either medical licensing, or, not required
Yeah.
for medical. See if the gym can work that, if that's
Yeah.
workable,
Yeah,
and make them separate.
I'm just thinking like, my mom in Rockford, the facility she was in started out as being, you know, just residential, but they also had fully assisted living in that same facility.
Fairly common,
So,
very common. You can
yeah.
just move to a different building or a
Yep.
different floor.
Yeah.
And then you'll have maybe more assistance that you need.
Right.
But I think we're really looking at separating the need for medical support from just day-to-day assisted.
Right, so I guess Joe's example is like, look, if I want just a small, I wanna come to you and I want the zoned, I said, we're not doing hospice, we're not doing any of that kind of stuff, we just want independent living.
Living.
Independent living, allow people to come in and do some cooking and cleaning, that's what we want. Will you allow that? I'll say,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll allow that, but, or do you just lump it all into one? This is zoning rights,
Yeah.
zoning rights.
I think it should be separate. That's,
Okay.
Well, again, we're not talking about the zoning part here, this is just the definitions of
True, but I'm
the
thinking
services.
if
Yes,
you are.
I know, I'm trying,
So do you need to separate those
Yeah.
in order for zoning, right? So it's like, well, I would allow someone over here who just needs independent living in this area, but I would not
Right.
allow one that needs medical services because then they're at they've got ambulances or whatever,
right, because then when you need medical services,
Yeah.
then you need, emergency support,
It might be, yes, all those kinds of
and
things.
it
yeah.
grows after that, so.
Yes, but you could put them all
Yeah.
under one and say, it's what we want. So do you want to just lump it into one definition and say, it doesn't matter if you need it or you don't need it, it'll be allowed in this
Yeah.
district, right? If you feel it has to be separated, say, well, I would allow something that's independent living, it doesn't require medical, I'd allow it over here, but I would not allow something that requires, ambulances to come in, medical, drug dispensing, because they have medications they have to take and stuff. That's
we have a
the
lot
question.
more information on nursery than
No.
the residential care facilities. And that's why I think it just needs more embellishment.
Okay, so the way I
Yeah.
kind of see it is like, I don't think it wouldn't make a difference to me whether you have an independent living or if it's with, assisted living or different level of care. I would put them together and just say I would allow that here or allow that here, either one. That's the way I view it. So, but I would agree with we redefine to make that more clear.
But I mean, in either case, this would be a commercial zoning, C1 or C2. It wouldn't be you wouldn't be allowing a residential care facility in a residentially zoned
I'd have to look at the exact thing, but I would agree,
Yeah.
it would probably be, but I don't.
C1, C2, so it's all the same,
So,
whether or not you need additional medical support. If it's C1 or C2, it doesn't matter.
that's why I think you just have one
Yeah.
definition for all those scenarios and just keep it in one.
Yeah.
And then it just fits into the zoning that it does. All right, so what I'm gonna ask Jim is just to reword that so that the housing services, so that it would encompass all of those types of availability, all right?
Okay.
Of all the types of care
Yeah.
that would be available, is what I was trying to say. All right. We spent enough time on the definition that. All righty, let's see, next page. Retail sale, let's see, we got retail goods establishment, retail sales or service establishment. And then the name is changed to reflect current trend of combining sales and service, e.g. Petco, which offers dog training,
Yeah.
dog grooming and stuff like that, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So. All right. Any comments on that?
Nope.
Good. Moving on. Jim, are you all right with that, or are you still reading?
And which page?
I was on 41, I'm gonna go to 42.
Okay, I'm okay, 41.
Okay. 42, it looks like, I don't see any comments, but I do see the short-term
Short-term
rental.
rental.
And I do believe that was in the staff
Specifically,
notes.
yeah,
And I think,
specifically for a dwelling unit.
yeah, and I did like the new When I looked at it, the new terminology, I
Yeah.
thought was fine, so
Yeah.
I'll go with the new terminology in red. So on page 43, covered under grocery store, it's a comment, so specialty food service. Covered under grocery, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so that's fine, that's good. That's page 44. First thing is, do we keep this in the matrix? There's a comment, temporary contractor's office. Sales center. Keep in the matrix. I don't know that.
I don't know.
If it's temporary, why, I thought we were getting rid of temporary stuff in this zoning anyway. I think the temporary uses were not in there. Because temporary things are gonna be put into the municipal code.
Right, but when I say temporary here, this is like during the term of the construction.
Right,
Where they're
right.
using a first home on a site as
Right.
the office.
I would say keep it in the matrix, no. Temporary contractor stuff, no, because if it's a temporary use, it's gonna be in the municipal code, so take it out.
Well, is it a definition, though?
Yeah, it's a
Remember, it's a definition, so it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily matter if it's in the matrix or not, does it?
Well, if you've got temporary contractor's office in a definition, but you don't utilize it anywhere, I mean, what's the purpose of having it in there?
But
I
you
could
have to
additional-
allow that.
Yeah, but that would be in the
It's part
zone,
of a
that would be in the
development.
municipal code.
Not the matrix.
Wouldn't be in the matrix, but the temporary contractor's office would be covered under the municipal code, but then. so-
How does it get included in the municipal code? I guess that'd be the next question. Is there an act that the village board would have to say, oh, we need to add this to the municipal code?
If it's not in there already, there would just be an ordinance amending the code. You wouldn't have to have a public hearing or anything if it's not within the zoning code. Something like this might be included somewhere in the building code provisions related to construction sites, temporary construction office is required over sites of a certain size or something like that. Or where they may be located, and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, page 45. So basically, keeping the matrix is no. Page 45, looks like we've got vehicle dealerships, so I'm just gonna pass on that, because whether you want one or not. So. Yeah, so the question is, do you want to prohibit used car lots? Vehicle dealership. That's a good question. Do you want to prohibit used car lots?
Yeah, I mean, that's very different than a dealership.
Yeah, very different. You could have a used car lot with 20 cars on it. It could be small.
Yeah. Or a dealership could have a used car lot as part of its facility.
Correct, correct.
So,
That's how they actually
That's
make them.
different than a specific used car.
Right.
solely used car,
Yeah.
right. I would say prohibit,
Yeah, prohibit
Prohibit
yeah,
what? Everything? No.
the used car lot,
Used
just
car.
as
Okay.
he stated.
Okay, so
yeah.
you want to limit the prohibit used car lots, okay? Prohibit. Okay. Next page.
In his notes on 46 for vehicle repair, we already broke that out. So he's saying, do we want to break this into two categories? And I thought we did that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, we did. We said auto parts, it's already, definitely, yeah. We did do that. 46, so we'll continue on. All right, that was exhausting.
Now go to 47.
Huh?
Now it's exhausting.
Yeah, 47 is that, there was nothing there. Yeah, that was riveting. All right, landscape standards. I think if we're lucky, we can get through this. I don't see a whole lot of, this is pretty straightforward in my opinion. 10-1, landscape plan. From my overlook, basically, he's taken away this is suggesting to remove a lot of things about, like, the exact quantity, size, specific names, and things like that. allowing.
Although he does have root ball condition in here.
He does. Bald and burlap, is that the type of it? So what kind of it is it? So, the tree preservation, I believe, there's a big part, that number 3, tree preservation plan, which is 10-2, I believe that was the major addition. I don't believe we had one, and I think that was a major addition to it, so.
That is the reason he
Yeah,
highlighted things.
yeah.
We do not have one.
Right, and you need one.
We
You definitely need one. So other than that, let's see, I'm just gonna continue on. I'm not gonna argue with the title block and, the type of boundary size, spacing of all providing ground cover, that's fine. I did notice on Del D, which would be a 10-1D, he had it in red and all lined out, but I believe that was a mistake to have it lined out. I believe he wants it there, because his staff comment is the landscape plan should always seek to improve water quality, stormwater quality. And so we're just unstrike his strike-through on D.
On D, the whole part?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that he wants, that, my impression is that's what he wants. Or not he wants, but what we would want.
What we would want.
We would want that we want the landscape to always seek to improve stormwater quality. So, why would we strike that? So I think he's trying to highlight it and then say that's what we want. But it's just shown as strike-through, so I think it's
Yeah,
just a.
so just the part of filter water before it goes into streams, sewers, et cetera.
Where's-
It's pretty uncommon to do that.
Where you're looking at?
The notes on D. The landscape plan should always seek to improve stormwater quality, yes, but that typically would not include filtering water before it goes into streams or.
Well, I think you come down to the definition of filter. So if you had a steel grate on a steel grate on a culvert.
I
that would
wouldn't consider that a filter.
Well, that's,
What mesh?
yeah, so, that's just his comment. There's nothing else that says
Understood.
filtering water.
Yep.
But I think you could really have a wide range of what filtering is. So 10-2 is the tree preservation plan, which is a very good idea. We ran into problems with that while incorporating and stuff, so. It just says what they want. They want to make sure that all the trees are measured and what's theirs before you start, tearing things down and removing them, so. I like that, like what it has to say, so I have no problems.
Yeah.
That's page 49.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Ralph, can you just go back to
Absolutely.
48?
Yeah.
I thought we weren't using the term zoning administrator. On,
Which is zoning,
10-1
zoning
B, 10.
officer?
well, I thought it was,
Currently, I believe it is zoning officer.
is that it?
I believe the
Yep.
current,
Building and zoning officer.
yeah, is the,
Yeah.
I
Right, but
think,
it's not zoning administrator.
that's, the current language is officer. I think the suggestion was administrator, which I think he's done since the first time we started this whole thing, has been
Yeah.
administrator.
Yeah, we were gonna, he was going to, after all the changes are made, make sure they all
I
conform
thought
to
the
the same.
acronym was ZBA.
That's
Right.
different
That's
than the
different.
individual position.
Okay,
Right,
Yeah.
the appointed
Okay.
position
Yeah,
of
yeah.
building zoning officer.
okay, I got it.
Okay, got it? All right, moving on.
Page 4062.
Pretty close. It is now on section 10.4, which is page 50 on the hard memo. So this is basically selecting the trees, and the big thing I take away, it asks, right now, currently it's saying, hey, 33% of the plant material should be native to Illinois or the upper Midwest. The staff comment one was says, man, I don't like it, and he tried a different way of saying it. And so I don't have a problem with the third of, they're trying to use natural plants and natural things that are just native to Illinois and the upper Midwest, which is a pretty broad area, if you're gonna say upper Midwest. So, I don't have a problem with that, leaving it the way it is.
On
unless-
10.4A1, I think it's supposed to be ANSI, A-N-S-I. Never heard of it.
Yes.
A-N-Z-I, but ANSI standard's pretty common,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
unless
think
that's one
typo.
specific.
yeah. S and Z are right near each other on the.
Well, but I
on
mean,
the typo.
unless that's something specific
Right.
for
Nursery. right.
nursery stuff.
Yeah. All right, so ANSI, that's A4, 10-4A1 would be change ANSI to ANSI, change the Z to an S in ANSI. Yeah, spell check. The second one says each category of plant material, canopy trees or shrubs should be consist of 30%, minimum 30%.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm fine with two,
Yeah.
the way it's described.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I'm not, I don't like the other way of trying to do
His
it.
comments there seem to become more restrictive, and
Right,
I would be happy with two, the way it's stated.
yep, I would
So
leave it.
the upper Midwest would be Wisconsin,
Yeah,
Minnesota,
I mean, it's.
but not Missouri. Well, I mean,
Northern-
The north
northern
half.
look,
Missouri-
it's getting late and
northern
getting
Missouri.
goofy, but,
All right.
Yeah.
you know, what's the upper Midwest? The 8 Great Lakes states, the 12 Midwest states, or
Well, what's it?
who's gonna check the 33%? What if they're only at, you know?
Well, it's 1 out of 3. You get 3. We're kind of, all right,
All
we're
right.
getting punchy. Let's move on. All right. Page, the next, down to 10.5. I didn't see any other changes there in red. He does have minimum planting sizes for
Yeah.
shade trees and or what they call canopy trees now. So I would say, Jim, just do a spell check on shade, because I know you, in A1, you crossed out shade and put canopy, but there's shade tree listed multiple times throughout the next several paragraphs. So an example would
Okay.
be B, 10.5B, it says shade. And then 10.6A3, it says it twice, 10.6A5, 10.6B4, and 10.7C all have, and 10.8C all have the word shade. So just do a spell check, Jim, for shade, and probably go to canopy if that's the preferred or best use of that terminology.
I would like to go back a little bit because there's a lot of nonprofits and our governmental bodies that are spending a lot of money to preserve native species of trees and plants in northeastern Illinois here. And I think that's why with these large projects, commercial projects, the concept of using native to northeastern Illinois is important, because I don't want to have to be competing with somebody next door who is putting in trees or plants that are not native and may become a problem in our area. And there are natives that are elsewhere in the country, in the region, you know, upper Midwest, that you may not want here and all. So that's where I think we need to look at the efforts that are being done throughout the community
but I don't
and
think that's-
require that of for-profit bodies that are looking to make a buck off the community, when we're spending so much time and effort of donated monies, of tax dollar monies to try to, you know, preserve what we have here in plantings. So that I think that's something that needs to be considered.
It's
I mean,
kind
this
of
is-
like the, excuse me, the Ponsistony Creek, when it was proposed. I know Josh from Campton Open Space, he
Yeah.
wanted to be sure they weren't gonna use calorie repair trees, right along Coron Farm, because they're always, you know, year-round, they're trying to prevent the invasive, species from growing there, whether it's trees or brush or whatever it may be.
But this is non-residential, this section.
Unless it's in a
This is for
PUD.
commercial or big old PUDs,
Yeah.
so they're
No,
bringing
not
a lot of.
PUDs.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
he just said it was.
Really?
Yeah, it applies to any PUDs,
Well,
or,
that
or
was
um,
Ponsistony Creek.
non-residential developments and any planned unit development.
The idea is to preserve,
First of all, there are invasives, I don't know what the village has about invasive species, and of course, the state I know has, you know, a list of invasive species and all those kinds of things that are prohibited, and things that they're trying to eradicate. So, and I agree that you want to use, I don't know if there's a better wording for it, but I don't know if it has to be native to northeast Illinois. I mean, is that limiting exactly what you can use? Is that gonna make it, what if you can't get the product, you know?
No,
So-
there's product out there.
So-
Yeah, I mean, right off
But
the top, Wasco Nursery has handled Possibility Place Nursery that grows exclusively.
So you're saying
collected
flip it
seed
around?
And all.
rather than saying, and I'm just trying to get your feed, so this was saying right now, you have to use at least one, or 33%, 1 and 3 has to be native, right? In this general area. The staff comment is saying that 3 out of 4 has to be native. That's the way I'm reading it. Is that what you're reading? Because you can limit it, only 25% of those could be non-native, non-invasive. So that means 75% would have to be from Northeast Illinois, is what's the proposed comment.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, I'd
Saying
be
it in a
almost
negative
say,
way.
I would just say that, hey, you know, we as taxpayers are paying our taxes to preserve stuff, as well as donors donating to nonprofits to preserve stuff. Why wouldn't we require these massive changes happening to, you know, they want to come in and benefit from being here in our community? Well, these are the standards we have in our community. I mean, that's the whole point of all this in the first place. We're not here to be an answer to everybody's zoning problem. There's plenty of communities that will accept all sorts of things. But if we can establish some standards, then, you know.
Well, I think he's saying 75 out of 100%. That's pretty stringent.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, you know, there's a number. And then what's the number? Because one side is saying 33%, and giving a little bit broader range. One is saying 75% has to be from Northeast, a very narrow range. So,
You can't make it 100%. That, you're gonna get that challenge.
so, I mean, what?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Well, you
certainly
could get a
75%.
challenge at any percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and we
But
can't always be
100%
afraid of
is very
challenges.
reasonable.
If we're afraid of challenges, then we might as well just disband, because
No,
there,
we gotta
we're
be
always gonna be
reasonable.
challenged. No,
We're
I
running late
understand,
on
I
time.
understand.
Hang on a second,
Yeah,
I
go
understand the
ahead.
point. I'd like to extend, because I'd like to finish this section tonight, okay? Which I don't think will take much longer.
Move to extend.
Thank you.
It's one more page, Jim.
So, right now, the comment here, we
Good.
don't have to decide tonight, but the comment here is, hey, do you want like 33% and from a larger area, or do you want 75% from a narrow area? That's what's in front of us, so what would you say? And we can we just come back and visit it, we can come back and visit it.
And Jerry's got a third option, 100%.
No, you're not gonna do 100%, but even if you do 75%, that 75% says grown in northeastern Illinois. But that could be some stock that came from northern Wisconsin that was finally propagated and, you know, cultivated here. So
It just says
limiting
species
to the
native.
Midwest species would be, I think, more appropriate than trying to say northeastern Illinois.
There's no continuity to the percentages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, I would propose that we talk about this at the last meeting, because when you read through the document, you know, there's another aspect that 60%, and it's not gonna be linear, but there is no continuity. And I'd like to get a better, certainly no expert in this area, I'd like to get a better understanding, and maybe people from Moscow Nursery could help us sift through this too, because, to me, it's all over the place.
or it might just also, well, there's people like Jack Schober, or, you know, people who are in that, you
Yeah.
know, there were other
Yep.
people who are in that field that might provide some input, so. All right, let's keep that as an open item for discussion, and how, looking what number, the
Yeah.
magic number, I guess, what we're looking for. And then otherwise, let's try to finish up the rest of this article. All right? Look at the end of page 50, I don't see it, so, go down to 10.5 would be the next one, landscape standards. And I think we just talked about the whole shade versus canopy, and then just ornamental trees having 2 inches, which is, I think it's a little bit more than normal, usually it's 1.5 from my understanding, but I don't have a problem with the 2 inches versus 1.5. And I have nothing else on there. Until you go to 10.6, parking lot landscaping, which looks like it's just a new heading. And that's about, there's really no, besides changing shade trees to canopy trees, there's nothing else in 10.6. It just defines parking lot, perimeter landscaping. So, all right. 10.7, unless there's nothing else to talk about. Site planning. I have nothing else to put in there, just a comment of a shade versus a canopy tree. Buffer yards, nothing on page 53. 54, done. Unless you have any other comments.
And just before you would adjourn, I'd like to ask a question for the next meeting.
Sure.
There was a discussion, talking primarily to Jerry, that brought to my attention. We don't really have subcategories or a separate definition under open space. And I know that's a topic near and dear to Campton Hill specifically and the preservation aspect. So a question to the group, would you like Jim and I and Carmen to work out a separating out open space, meaning there's open space that's township forest preserve on the map? That's pretty standard. But we could call out the F1 being farmland protection district and really define that as a defined term in the code, or make it a separate subcategory under open space. And then there's also areas that are deed restricted, like Garfield Farms is not open space traditional of township and or forest preserve, but it's clearly open space. Should it have its own definition? And then there's properties that Jerry can allude to that have deed restrictions on them, but they're not zoning restrictions. And do you want to call those out? And I would do is work with the board to get a lawyer or a paralegal to do a land record search so we don't miss any of those. But generally, would you like a separate definition for all those type of things, or just under open space subcategories?
My first question would be, are they gonna be treated differently? Because if you have open space, is it gonna be treated differently? Is township gonna be treated differently than farmland preservation, but be deed restricted? Are they gonna be treated any differently on what they can do or how they use
They
the
would
time?
be, there'd be different uses on some of that, because F1 farmland protection is row crops primarily. And, you know, in some of the forest preserves, they do allow row crops on their forest preserve property. We kind of need to make sure we give a little flexibility to farmland protection. It's not true prairie grass open space. It's, oftentimes, it is going to be intensely farmed.
Yeah, I would say that the farmland is
It's
separate.
Separate
And
category.
should be treated separately than the open space. So, you know, on the listing that's here, almost all of the parcels are township open space or the forest preserve. There's a couple I don't, Jerry, maybe you could shed some light. WJD Partnership, James Wall, a little
Yeah, I had that same
5 acre
one. I'm not-
parcel.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So, if the root of the question is, should farming be different than open space, I believe strongly that it should.
Should be, yeah.
And farmland preservation is different, in my view, than
Yes.
open space.
Yeah, and I think it should have its own definition and category. And then you've got these scattered, I mean, Garfield Farms is different than
Yeah.
township or forest preserve.
Yeah.
And it's unique to this community, so I think we might want a definition. And then there's other properties that just have deed restrictions.
Yep.
In terms of conservation and
Yeah.
things like that. What,
So how would that be treated differently than farmland preservation?
well, the main thing would be, from a mapping standpoint, if there's one way you can just do a subset, like, one of my thoughts as well, how about protected properties designation, which means that, okay, what kind of protection is it? Well, it's an easement protection for land, or it's an easement protection for a historic structure, or something like that, that indicates to anybody who looks at the map, because the idea of the map is a person can just go up to it, look at, oh, that's my zoning in my category, that's that zoning on this property, and if it doesn't say anything about Well, yes, but it's also has some designation on it that you can't just assume that, oh, I can buy it or do whatever to it that I want to outside of, you know.
Well, and if you don't put
So,
a
I don't
zoning
know how that-
restriction, somebody could buy, like your property that you own in your family, Jerry, I'm sorry.
Took the mic off. Like your own property's got deed restrictions and easement restrictions, but if somebody bought it, if we don't have a zoning restriction defining it, it might be easier to pull those restrictions off and use it in a way that's not historically what's intended today.
Yeah, if the
If it's
township
not-
and the owner agree.
Yes, and if there's not a zoning definition, it's easier to do that. And I want to know, do you want to make it very hard?
I don't know, it's.
It's for you to
Zoning
discuss, because this is something I've never seen in any other community, but you do have a lot of
If they're gonna be.
subcategories.
Yeah, if they're gonna be treated differently, the uses of the land is gonna be treated differently, then it should be either, I would think a subcategory.
Yep.
So, all right, so if they're treated differently, then you wanna have a subcategory. I would make it a subcategory.
Subcategory
I
instead of
would,
separate
I would say
definition.
open space, and then make them subcategory. It could be open space 1, open space 2, open space 3, or open space
But,
FP,
but Rob, are you
Right, so-
saying that farming is separate though,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
is that where you started?
Yeah,
So
'cause I'm talking- I'm
farming's
just
one
talking open space.
category.
I'm not talking farming.
Okay.
So I'm just talking open space.
Yep, and then there are other open space parcels in the village that are not owned by the township or owned by the forest preserve.
Right.
Like Garfield Farms.
Or the school district.
And not Garfield Farms either. There are subdivisions in the village that have,
Dedicated open space because of the
Development
land,
agreements.
land
Mhm.
grant.
so,
You're right.
and that doesn't need to be a separate category.
I don't
But
think
it
so.
needs to be defined
Defined.
of, I'll say the HOA category, which is different than the township and different than the forest preserve.
Okay.
And
And-
it's
and-
usually part of a PUD, but it doesn't always have to be.
Well, I'll also tell you that I don't think we have good record keeping on that,
I agree, that's why I'm
and,
not.
and that's why it needs to be added to the list.
And that's why we're gonna try to get a specific land record over at the county to just try to make sure we capture all these
Yeah,
unique
'cause
things.
Any
Yeah.
ones that just have covenants on it, it's just in the covenants of the subdivision. And that's not widely known,
Right.
maybe even amongst their own residents in that subdivision.
It's probably long forgotten because they didn't read
Well,
page
these
50
are
out of
also
60
newer
pages.
subdivisions that have an open space or nature preserve component also. And it does get confusing, so.
And it may also come about as being quote an open space because the county was really worried about water, maybe water management.
Yep.
So it could be
Yeah.
stormwater
Yeah.
management is why they designated, so.
All right, so
Just
is
as
that
a-
enough direction for you and Jim? Is
Well,
that enough direction?
yeah.
And Carmen?
Mark,
Okay.
I think there's a large farm parcel in the northwest corner of the village that is farmland preservation. It's not on this
Strong-
map.
For the strong?
Strong, yeah.
The strong
Yes,
property?
we've,
Strong's.
that's why I'm saying I think I need to spend some money on some
Do a
land
search.
record search.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause that was, they sold the development rights.
Right, to the.
They
to
sold the
county,
development
to
rights
Kane
to the county.
Farmland
With
Protection.
federal
So they-
dollars.
So,
Yes.
but they sold the rights for the development, but the other people, they own the property. They own the property.
They
but
still own
sold-
it.
But they
Yeah,
sold the
so
rights
it's an easement.
of the
Yeah,
use.
right.
So
not
that,
develop
so
it.
it would stay farmland.
Right.
Yes, so it had to be farmed, but they could sell the farm,
Right.
Yes.
and then, but someone else would come in, but the only they could do was
Is
farm
farm
it.
it,
So-
yes.
Check,
So that might be,
yes.
open
So,
space
so
5.
farmland preservation should be one of the categories under open space.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we just wanna,
OSFP.
I know we've got some uniqueness to this and we wanna know how you wanna
Right,
call it out.
right.
And I think when you talk about looking at the map, which will, looking at it back, you're like, okay, that's some open space, but it's just not farmland, that's farmland preservation. It would help understand that this is not a public place where I can go
Right.
and take my ATV and go on somebody's farm. So,
And,
okay.
and there is some Campton Township open space easements that the public cannot go on, like De Beers or Jack Anderson, where people live on there, but it's not open to the public.
Sure.
But there is an easement around the property to keep it.
And you probably want to create a zoning to make it even harder to change that if
That's
the land
right.
is sold
Yeah.
to an
easements you have to have two to tango? Or how many people are involved? Like with us, Campton Township has the easement on the Edward Garfield Mungerson Brothers farmstead, 95 acres, but they also took the money I got for them from the USDA Farmland Protection Program, so there's three parties there that would have to agree to dissolve all that, I guess.
All right.
But,
How
yeah,
should
so
we-
anyhow,
Thank
it's
you,
complicated.
thank you for the historical thing. It's getting
How
late.
do we define it in
It's
zoning?
getting late, all right?
Give us a proposal.
Yes,
Okay,
all right, here's a proposal.
it's clear as mud.
I want to just talk very, very briefly about the zoning for the map for the next time we didn't get a chance to get to that. All right, so, but this has been a good discussion about, we were gonna start with the, open space area and how to do that. This will help, I think, with that discussion next time. I think if you did get a chance to look at your packet, you'll notice, a map like this on there, and the idea is that we would look at a parcel of, I'm just trying to give you the overall concept of what
Yep.
we're gonna try to do. We would look at a parcel, and then I thought Jim did a pretty good job at the very end. He actually had a fact sheet for each parcel.
Yeah.
It talked about what the standards were.
What you guys have.
That size is much better.
Yeah,
I can almost read it.
So,
yeah,
you don't have to look at it right now,
No.
just so you know what we've created.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's an issue I've already brought up with Mark on this. I don't know how to validate that map, how to look for errors on that map. Because it's just a green blob with 6 different or 12 different parcel numbers. You're gonna have to have the parcels themselves outlined and labeled individually to understand that. Or, this is just something we're gonna have to take on faith that the staff has done, or you're hiring somebody to validate that. So, if we are gonna try to make sure that this is done correctly, we're gonna have to have a map that actually takes that big green blob, shows each individual parcel, lists each individual parcel number, is the only way we can
The
validate it.
assessor's office could help us with that,
Yeah.
because they've got every parcel.
Yeah.
And I think they probably have things in a environment where it wouldn't be difficult to do.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll work with.
This
the-
would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My other comment was that Jim put out, I thought was very good when he looked at, if you're gonna look at one of these, this is the center, this district for Campton, for Wasco.
This like when we get to the
Yep.
commercial.
Yep, yep.
You pick one of these properties, say the upper left-hand corner of B3, you know, and he's got a page that shows pictures and says, here's what it is, here's the amendment for it, and here's what we think it should be. And I think it works, it's labeled and developed in a pretty good way that will allow us to take each parcel and say, yes, this is zone B3. Currently, the new is RD, and what are the uses for that, which is light industrial? Is this light industrial? It is, it makes sense, so it's the current use, and that's just so, then that's fine.
Can we assemble a spreadsheet with that parcel ID number, what it's currently zoned and what the proposal is?
Actually, if you look at
Yes, he's
the
got it.
back of the, there's a zoning, rezoning worksheet,
Yes.
that has all that listed, so it says what it currently is and what the new zoning is and all that stuff, so.
That's great.
So I would look at that for next time, because that's the way we're probably gonna approach that, all right? I just wanna get you an introduction to that, because I know it's late, all right? Any comments, or before we adjourn?
And if you look at that and got some comments, send it to Jim, Carmen, or I, so we get it straight before your when are we meeting again? July 23rd, 24th?
Hold, please.
I think it's the last Wednesday in July, right?
July 24th,
Yeah.
from 6:30 to 7. I move we
Motion?
adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Barsky.
I'll second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you for your patience and diligence tonight. That was a tough one.